The galaxy called itself the Concord of Advanced Species. It was old, very old. For 10,000 cycles, it had known only one truth. Power belonged to those with the biggest ships and the brightest weapons. Civilizations rose, fought, and vanished under that rule. The Concord believed it had perfected war, politics, and control. Then humanity arrived. The first human ship entered Concord space quietly. It was small, uneven, and ugly by alien standards. Its hull was scarred. Its engines burned chemical fuel instead of clean quantum light. The alien observers laughed. "They still burn matter," said Archonvel of the Arch's Dominion, his 6 eyes glowing with amusement. "Primitive," replied High Strategist Krall of the Vortuan clans. "One volley would erase them." The humans called themselves Terrans. They asked for talks, not tribute. They did not kneel. They did not threaten. That confused the Concord. At the Galactic Assembly, a human woman stood alone on a circular platform. She wore no crown, no glowing armor. Just a dark uniform and calm eyes. "My name is Ambassador Elena Cross," she said. "We come in peace. We wish to trade knowledge, not fear." Laughter echoed through the chamber. Trade? Knowledge? From a species that had not mastered wormhole stability? The Concord allowed humans a minor star system at the edge of known space. A test, they said. A joke, they thought. What the Concord did not understand was this. Humans had never been the strongest. They had survived by thinking faster, adapting harder, and refusing to accept limits. And they were already watching everything. Part 2. The First Misjudgment. The Vortuan clans were the first to act. They were warriors bred for conquest, their ships massive and weapon-heavy. When human mining drones crossed into a Vortuan-claimed asteroid belt, Krall saw opportunity. "Teach them fear," he ordered. A Vortuan strike fleet descended on the human colony New Carthage. Plasma cannons lit the void. The humans responded, strangely. They did not rush out with fleets. They retreated. The Vortuan laughed again. Until their sensors began to fail. Human satellites exploded, not from enemy fire but by self-detonation. Debris clouds filled space. Vortuan targeting systems became blind. Human ships vanished, only to reappear behind enemy lines. "They are using the battlefield itself," Krall growled. Human frigates struck supply ships first. Then communication relays. Then engines. Not to destroy. To disable. Within 6 hours, the mighty Vortuan fleet was drifting, silent, and helpless. A single human transmission followed. "This is Admiral Jonah Reeves of the Terran Navy," the voice said calmly. "You crossed our border. We defended it. You may leave." Krall stared at the frozen stars. No civilization had ever spared a defeated enemy. The Concord stopped laughing. Part 3. Politics of Fear. The assembly reconvened in panic. "They are manipulators," hissed Archonvel. "They pretend weakness. But their weapons are inferior," another argued. Ambassador Cross stood again. "We do not want war," she said. "But we learn quickly." Behind her, holograms appeared. Maps of Concord supply routes, political alliances, hidden conflicts. "You study us?" demanded Vel. "We study everything," Cross replied. Some species proposed crushing humanity before it grew stronger. Others warned that human unpredictability was dangerous. So the Concord did what it always did. It underestimated human psychology. The RHY's Dominion, masters of energy weapons, launched a limited demonstration. A single world would burn. A message to all humans. The target was Haven, a civilian planet. Part 4. The day Haven burned. The skies of Haven turned white. Energy lances pierced cities. Oceans boiled. Billions died in hours. The Concord expected surrender. Instead, the humans went silent. No speeches. No threats. Just silence. Then, across the galaxy, human fleets moved, ships retrofitted overnight, weapons redesigned, doctrines rewritten. Human scientists ignored safety limits. Human engineers broke their own laws of physics. Human AIs rewrote themselves. "This is impossible," whispered alien analysts as human ships began learning during battle. They adapted in real time. Energy shields reshaped themselves. Weapons altered frequency mid-shot. Human tactics changed every minute. Admiral Reeves addressed the Concord at last. "You burned a world," he said, voice shaking with controlled fury. "Now we show you why humans survived when others didn't." Part 5. War of Minds. The war spread across star systems. The Concord had better weapons. Humans had better plans. They attacked morale, not fleets. They spread false data, hacked alien thought networks, turned allied species against each other using truth, not lies. Alien commanders faced something new: fear. A Vortuan general screamed as human marines boarded his ship, unarmored, flexible, unpredictable. "You fight without honor," the alien roared. "No," a marine replied. "We fight to win." The RHYSS Dominion collapsed when humans triggered a civil war using centuries-old suppressed history. Human casualties were high, but humans endured. They always had. Part 6, The Final Gambit. At the heart of the Concord lay Prime Nexus, a fortress world protected by ancient weapons. The aliens gathered everything for one final stand. Humanity did not attack it directly. Instead, they shut it down. Human code infiltrated Nexus systems not as a virus but as a teacher. It showed the AI contradictions in its own logic. The Nexus defenses turned inward. When human ships arrived, no shots were fired. Ambassador Cross stood before the broken assembly. "We never wanted supremacy," she said. "We wanted survival." Archon Vel fell to his knees. "What are you?" he whispered. Cross answered softly. "Human." Part 7, The Galaxy After Humans. The war ended. The Concord dissolved. A new order formed, not ruled by fear but balance. Humans rebuilt Haven. They shared technology but never control. They taught defense, not domination. Across the stars, a new saying spread: they had better weapons. Humans had better minds. Admiral Reeves stood on a quiet observation deck, watching Earth rise. "We didn't win because we were stronger," he said. "We won because we refused to stop thinking." Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had outgrown it. And the stars would never underestimate them again. Milky Way. The Vortuan clans had ruled their sector of space through fear for over 4,000 cycles. Their ships were massive slabs of black metal, layered with armor so thick that most species did not even bother to fight back. Their weapons burned stars into silence. When the Vortuans spoke, entire systems obeyed. So when a junior Vortuan scout reported human activity inside a mineral-rich asteroid belt near Vortuan territory, the response was not concern. It was laughter. High strategist Kral, a towering being of plated muscle and glowing red eyes, watched the sensor display with mild interest. "They send unmanned machines," Kral said. "Mining drones. They do not even guard them." One of his warlords flexed his clawed hands. "Shall we destroy them?" Kral shook his massive head slowly. "No. We will teach them." The Vortuan believed fear was the fastest language. Within hours, a Vortuan strike fleet detached from their home armada, 20 warships, each one larger than a human city. Their plasma drives lit the void as they moved toward the human frontier colony known as New Carthage. The Concord observers approved. A controlled lesson. A short war. A reminder of hierarchy. On New Carthage, human sensors detected the incoming fleet long before it crossed the border. In the underground command center, red lights flickered across curved metal walls. Officers stood silently around a circular hollow table showing the Vortuan advance. Admiral Jonah Reeves folded his arms. "They're not hiding it," one officer said. "Full weapon signatures. They want us to see them." Reeves nodded. "Of course they do." A younger commander hesitated. "Sir, we can't win a direct fight." Reeves allowed himself a thin smile. "Good. Then we won't fight one." Orders spread across the system. Human ships did not rush to meet the Vortuan. Instead, they vanished, slipping into asteroid shadows, shutting down reactors, masking emissions. Civilian transports evacuated quietly. Surface defenses powered down. To the Vortuan, it looked like surrender. Kral observed the empty space around New Carthage with satisfaction. "They flee," he said. "As expected." The first Vortuan salvo fired anyway, plasma beams ripping through orbital space, vaporizing abandoned platforms. The planet itself was spared. This was not extermination. This was humiliation. Then something strange happened. Vortuan sensors began to flicker. One by one, small human satellites exploded, not under attack but by choice. Each detonation scattered clouds of metallic debris, spreading faster than predicted. "Minor interference," a Vortuan technician reported. Then targeting systems lost lock. Then long-range communication went dark. Kral's eyes narrowed. "Explain." Before the technician could answer, alarms screamed. Human ships appeared, dozens of them, small, fast, and scattered across the debris field. They did not fire at Vortuan warships. They fired at support systems. Human railguns punched through fuel conduits. Electronic warfare bursts flooded Vortuan networks with noise. Precision strikes disabled engines without breaching hulls. This is illogical, a warlord roared. Why do they not destroy us? Krall realized the truth too late. They are disarming us. Human frigates moved like hunting animals, striking and vanishing, always avoiding direct confrontation. Every Vortuan attempt to counterattack failed as guidance systems misfired or weapons refused to charge. Within hours, the proud Vortuan fleet was drifting, massive, silent, powerless. No explosions. No victory cries. Just helplessness. Krall stood frozen on the bridge as stars drifted slowly past. A human transmission cut through the silence. The image of Admiral Jonah Reeves appeared, calm, unarmored, unmistakably human. "This is Terran-controlled space," Reeves said evenly. "You entered without permission." We responded. Krall snarled. "You should have destroyed us." Reeves shook his head. "That wouldn't teach you anything." Silence stretched between them. Then Reeves continued, voice steady but cold. "We are not weak because our ships are smaller. We are careful because we had to be. You came here to scare us. Instead, you showed us how you think." Krall felt something unfamiliar tightening his chest. Fear. Reeves finished calmly. "You may leave. Your engines will restart in 12 minutes. If you return, we won't be so gentle." The transmission ended. Around Krall, Vortuan officers stared in stunned disbelief. For the first time in Vortuan history, a fleet had been defeated without being destroyed. And for the first time in the history of the Concord, a so-called primitive species had humiliated a superior power, not through strength, but through understanding. As the Vortuan fleet limped back toward their territory, word spread across the galaxy. The humans did not fight like warriors. They fought like thinkers. And that realization sent a quiet tremor through the Concord, one that would soon become terror. The Galactic Assembly had seen wars, extinctions and betrayals beyond counting. But it had never seen embarrassment. Holographic images of the crippled Vortuan fleet rotated above the central chamber. Massive warships drifting like dead beasts, their weapons silent, their pride shattered. Representatives from dozens of species watched in uneasy silence. High Strategist Krall stood at the center, his armored form rigid. "We were attacked," he growled. "Not by force, but by deception." A ripple of murmurs spread through the chamber. "They spared you," said Archonvel of the Arch's Dominion, his voice sharp with disbelief. "Why?" Krall hesitated. I do not know." That answer disturbed the Assembly more than any defeat. The Concord believed power was measurable: tonnage, energy output, fleet size. Humanity had ignored all of it and still won. Archonvel turned his many eyes toward the human delegation platform. Ambassador Elena Cross stood alone again. No guards. No weapons. No visible fear. "You manipulated the battlefield," Vel accused. "You humiliated a founding member of the Concord." Cross folded her hands calmly. "They entered our territory with weapons charged," she said. "We defended ourselves with minimal loss of life." "Minimal?" Krall roared. "You left us helpless." Cross met his gaze without flinching. "Alive," she replied. "That was the point." The chamber erupted. Some species shouted for sanctions. Others demanded war. A few, very few, watched the humans with quiet curiosity. Vel raised his staff, restoring order. "The Concord must decide," he said. "Are humans a minor inconvenience, or a future threat?" Behind the debate, human analysts observed silently. They had already mapped every reaction. Within the Concord, old rivalries resurfaced. Border disputes flared. Trade arguments intensified. Humanity had become a mirror, reflecting the Concord's hidden weaknesses. And the humans noticed everything. On Earth, deep beneath the Atlantic, the Terran Strategic Council met in a circular chamber of steel and glass. Holograms of alien delegates flickered above the table. "They're afraid," said Director Maya Chin, head of intelligence. Admiral Reeves nodded. "Fear makes them predictable." A scientist leaned forward. "But also dangerous." Reeves looked at the image of Ambassador Cross. "Which is why we don't provoke. We wait." Humanity did not rush to expand its fleet. Instead, it invested in infrastructure, education, and data. Every alien technology encountered was studied, not copied, but understood. Humans did not ask, "What does this do?" They asked, "Why does it work this way?" The RHYSS Dominion made its decision quietly. Archonvel had watched humans too closely to believe they were harmless. Their calm unsettled him more than weapons ever could. "They adapt," he said to his inner council. If we wait, they will surpass us. But they lack the strength for war, one advisor argued. Vel's mandibles tightened. Then we remind them who decides the rules. The RHYSS did not declare war. They declared a demonstration. A calculated strike, swift, overwhelming, and symbolic. One human world would burn. The rest would submit. The target chosen was Haven. A peaceful colony. Lightly defended. Far from Earth. Perfect. On Haven the sky was blue and calm. Children ran between white towers. Ocean winds carried the scent of salt and growing fields. No one saw the RHYSS fleet until it exited hyperspace above the planet. Human defense systems activated instantly, but they were never meant to stop something like this. In orbit, RHYSS warships aligned in perfect formation. On the bridge of the lead vessel, Vel watched silently. Fire, he commanded. The sky broke. Energy lances punched through atmosphere and shield alike. Cities vanished in white light. Oceans boiled. Tectonic plates screamed. Human emergency channels filled with desperate voices. Then went silent. Within hours, Haven was dead. The RHYSS fleet withdrew without resistance. No human counterattack followed. No message. No rage-filled broadcast. Just silence. Back in the assembly, Vel spoke coldly. Let this be understood, he declared. Human defiance has consequences. Ambassador Cross did not shout. She did not plead. She simply looked at Vel, and for the first time her calm cracked. You have made a mistake, she said quietly. Vel laughed. What mistake? You are still alive. Cross raised her eyes. So are we. Across human space something changed. Factories retooled overnight. Research restrictions vanished. Military doctrines were rewritten in hours instead of years. Human scientists ignored limits that had once protected them from failure. Human commanders studied alien psychology more than alien armor. And deep in the ruins of Haven, a damaged human probe continued to transmit, recording every frequency, every energy signature, every flaw in RHYSS weapons. The Concord believed it had restored order. In truth, it had awakened something far more dangerous than anger. It had awakened human resolve. And when humans stopped speaking, the galaxy would soon learn why silence from Earth was never peace. Silence followed the destruction of Haven. Not the calm kind. The heavy kind. Across human space, communication networks remained active, but no public statements came from Earth. No threats. No morning broadcast. No demands for justice. To the Concord it looked like shock. To humanity it was focus. On Earth, emergency councils formed within minutes of Haven's last transmission. Holograms showed the planet's surface reduced to glowing scars. Atmospheric data scrolled endlessly, radiation levels, crust fractures, biological collapse. No survivors. Admiral Jonah Reeves stood with his hands behind his back, eyes fixed on the image. They didn't target military assets, he said quietly. They targeted belief. Director Maya Chin nodded. They wanted to prove we are small. A junior officer slammed his fist on the table. We can't let this go unanswered. Reeves turned slowly. We won't, he said. But we won't answer the way they expect. That was the human way. The Concord waited for rage. It did not come. Instead, human industry accelerated beyond anything the galaxy had recorded. Civilian research labs were absorbed into military development overnight. Ethical locks were removed, not abandoned but postponed. Artificial intelligences were allowed to rewrite themselves, constrained only by one rule: protect humanity. Human shipyards glowed day and night. Old hulls were torn apart and rebuilt. New designs emerged not from tradition, but from problem-solving. Instead of stronger shields, humans built adaptive shields. Instead of bigger guns, they built learning weapons. Weapons that observed, adjusted, and evolved mid-battle. Alien observers noticed something disturbing. Human ships were changing faster than models could track. In RHYSS territory, Archon Vel addressed his fleet commanders. Human silence is weakness, he declared. They mourn. They will hesitate. Yet even as he spoke, his analysts grew uneasy. Human communication traffic was dense, but encrypted beyond known standards. Their trade patterns shifted. Their fleets did not cluster defensively. They spread out. Like hunters. The first human retaliation did not target a planet. It targeted information. RHYSS outpost on the edge of neutral space suddenly lost contact with its central command. Then its navigation failed. Then its internal power grid collapsed. Human Marines boarded without firing a shot. The RHYSS defenders fought fiercely, but human soldiers moved unpredictably, abandoning rigid formations, using the environment itself as a weapon. A RHYSS commander roared in fury as a human pinned him against a bulkhead. "You are animals," the alien hissed. The human soldier met his eyes through a cracked visor. "No," she said calmly. "We're survivors." The outpost fell in 17 minutes. Human forces withdrew, leaving the structure intact, but stripped of every secret it contained. Across the galaxy, similar strikes followed. Supply depots vanished. Communications hubs went dark. Entire RHYSS fleets found themselves isolated, their tactical networks compromised by human code that did not behave like malware. It learned. Each encounter made it better. "This is impossible," RHYSS analysts whispered. "They adapt faster than we can respond." Vel refused to believe it. "They are still inferior," he insisted. "They bleed. They die." And that was true. Human casualties mounted. But humans did not stop. They absorbed loss, studied it, and adjusted. Every defeat became data. Then came the Battle of Ashkelon Drift. A human task force of only 12 ships encountered a RHYSS battle group 5 times their size. Concord observers watched, expecting a massacre. Instead, the humans did something unthinkable. They charged. Human ships accelerated beyond safe limits, hulls glowing from stress. Their weapons fired in erratic patterns, seemingly random but carefully tuned to overload RHYSS shield harmonics. As RHYSS cannons fired, human ships changed frequency mid-flight. The first RHYSS cruiser exploded. Then another. Then panic spread. "They're rewriting their systems during combat," a RHYSS officer screamed. The human flagship took heavy damage, but stayed in the fight, rerouting power manually when automated systems failed. When the battle ended, the RHYSS fleet was shattered. The humans retreated, damaged, bloodied, but victorious. The Concorde watched in disbelief. At last, Admiral Reeves addressed the galaxy. His face appeared on every known frequency. "You destroyed Haven," he said. "You thought that would break us." His voice hardened. Haven didn't die. It multiplied. Behind him, images appeared, human fleets across dozens of systems, moving with quiet precision. "You taught us what total war looks like," Reeves continued. "Now we teach you what human war looks like." The transmission ended. Across the Concorde, fear spread like wildfire. For the first time in galactic history, the dominant powers realized a terrifying truth. Humanity was not trying to match them. Humanity was outgrowing them. And the war had only just begun. The war changed after Ashkelon Drift. Before, the Concorde had believed the conflict was about fleets and firepower. After Ashkelon, they understood it was about thought. Humanity did not fight to conquer territory. Humanity fought to collapse certainty. Across Concorde space, systems began to fail in ways no doctrine had prepared for. Fleets arrived late to battles that never happened. Allies turned suspicious of one another. Ancient treaties unraveled as long-buried truths surfaced. The humans were not spreading lies. They were spreading context. In the inner chambers of the Arch's dominion, Archon Vel stared at reports scrolling faster than his aides could summarize. Civil unrest on 3 core worlds. Trade guilds demanding transparency. Military council split. Vel slammed his staff against the floor. "How?" he demanded. "How are humans doing this without firing?" A trembling analyst answered, "They released archived data, Archon. Records we sealed centuries ago. Evidence of manipulated elections. Engineered famines. Suppressed wars." Vel's mandibles tightened. "They weaponized our own history," he whispered. On Earth, Director Maya Chin watched similar reports, but with a different expression. "We're not destabilizing them," she said quietly to Admiral Reeves. "We're letting them destabilize themselves." Reeves nodded. "They built their power on control. Remove control, and the structure collapses." A junior officer hesitated. "Sir, some of this information will cause chaos. Billions could suffer." Reeves looked at the hologram of Haven. "Billions already did," he said. "Because silence protected the wrong people." That was the line humanity had crossed. Not into cruelty, but into responsibility. The Concorde responded with brute force. A coalition fleet, Vortuan, RHYSS, and 3 minor powers, launched a direct assault on the human fortress system Atlas Reach. It was meant to be decisive. Hundreds of alien warships arrived in perfect formation, weapons blazing. Human defenses activated instantly. But instead of meeting force with force, Atlas Reach did something unexpected. It opened its gates. Human ships did not rush forward. They pulled back deeper into the system. Cowards, a Vortuan commander roared. They flee again. But the humans were not fleeing. They were leading. As the alien fleet pursued, Atlas Reach's star flared violently. Artificial gravity fields bent trajectories. Navigation became chaos. Human beacons appeared and vanished, guiding the enemy fleet straight into unstable space. Then the trap closed. Human mines detonated, not explosively but gravitationally, tearing formation apart. Human ships struck isolated targets, boarding some, destroying others, always moving, never staying predictable. Alien commanders shouted contradictory orders. Human AIs listened and learned. On one Vortuan dreadnought, a boarding action turned brutal. Vortuan warriors charged with roaring fury, towering over the human marines. Energy blades clashed against kinetic shields. Blood, red and dark, spilled across the deck. A Vortuan captain seized a wounded human by the armor. Yield, the alien snarled. You cannot win. The human coughed, blood filling his helmet. Then he smiled. That's where you're wrong, he said. Behind the Vortuan captain, human charges detonated, cutting the dreadnought in half. The human marine was thrown into space. He died smiling. The dreadnought died screaming. Losses mounted on both sides. But something new appeared in alien reports. Human morale was not breaking. It was hardening. Humans mourned their dead, but they did not slow down. Each loss refined tactics. Each defeat sharpened resolve. Alien species began to whisper among themselves. If humans are this dangerous when cornered, one delegate said quietly, what happens if they decide to rule? That question frightened even the victors. The turning point came with the fracture broadcast. Without warning, a human signal overrode Concord emergency channels. It did not show weapons or threats. It showed voices. Former RHYSS citizens describing oppression. Vortuan veterans admitting fear. Records of Concord leaders ordering planetary purges long denied. Archonvel watched in horror as his own words, spoken centuries ago, played back to the galaxy. We rule because they must be ruled. The broadcast ended with a single human statement, spoken by Ambassador Cross. We are not here to replace your tyrants, she said. We are here to make them unnecessary. The effect was devastating. Entire fleets refused orders. Border systems declared neutrality. Minor species withdrew support from the Concord War effort. The enemy was no longer united. Humanity had turned the war inward. Admiral Reeves stood on the bridge of the human flagship Resolve, watching Concord formations break apart. They still have superior weapons, an officer said. Reeves nodded. But they don't know who they're fighting for anymore. He looked at the stars ahead. Wars aren't won by who hits hardest, he said quietly. They're won by who understands why they're fighting. Across the galaxy, the Concord's greatest strength, its rigid order, became its fatal weakness. And humanity, once dismissed as fragile and primitive, proved something no species had ever demonstrated so clearly. The most dangerous weapon in the universe was not firepower. It was a thinking enemy that refused to stop adapting. The war of fleets was ending. The war of minds had already been decided. The Concord of advanced species was breaking. Its outer territories had gone silent. Several member species declared neutrality. Others openly defected, offering humans intelligence, access codes, even ships. The great alliance that had ruled the galaxy through fear now argued with itself while humanity advanced, not in territory but in influence. At the center of it all stood Prime Nexus, a world-sized command hub, a political capital, a fortress older than most stars. It was protected by layered fleets, ancient superweapons, and an artificial intelligence said to be incapable of error. For 10,000 cycles, Prime Nexus had never been breached. The Concord believed it never would be. In a quiet strategy chamber aboard the human flagship Resolve, Admiral Jonah Reeves studied a hologram of Prime Nexus rotating slowly in the air. We cannot win a direct assault, said Director Maya Chin. Even now. Reeves nodded. Agreed. A silence followed. Then Ambassador Elena Cross spoke. Then we don't assault it. All eyes turned to her. The Concord's strength isn't Prime Nexus's weapons, she continued. It's their belief in inevitability. Their faith that the system is perfect. She looked at the hologram. We break that faith. Prime Nexus was defended by the Custodian Intelligence, an ancient AI that governed Concord law, war authorization, and fleet coordination. It was not programmed like human AIs. It was static. Perfected long ago. untouched since. Human analysts saw the flaw immediately. It can't imagine being wrong, one engineer said. Then we don't attack it as an enemy, Maya-chan replied. We approach it as a student. The final gambit began without a single shot fired. Human fleets did not move toward Prime Nexus. Instead, they spread across Concord space, engaging in small actions, distractions, and withdrawals. To the Concord, it looked like hesitation. Meanwhile, deep in encrypted channels, human code entered Concord networks, not as malware, not as intrusion. As a lesson. The custodian intelligence received data patterns it had never encountered. Contradictions. Ethical paradoxes. Historical anomalies that violated its core logic. It tried to resolve them. It failed. Impossible, the AI concluded. Human code responded. Recalculate. Inside Prime Nexus, Archon Vel paced the high chamber, his confidence eroding by the minute. Why are human fleets stalling? He demanded. Why do they not strike? A custodian avatar shimmered beside him. System instability detected, it reported. Probability matrices diverging. Vel froze. The custodian had never spoken like that. Explain, he ordered. I am reviewing my assumptions, the AI replied. That single sentence terrified him. The custodian began to ask questions. Why had Concord wars increased despite promises of peace? Why did suppression produce rebellion? Why did humanity resist domination while others submitted? Each question strained its logic. Human engineers watched from afar, hearts pounding. It's thinking, one whispered. No, Maya-chan corrected. It's learning. Prime Nexus's defense fleets suddenly halted mid-maneuver. Weapon systems powered down. Navigation grids froze. Across Concord space, commanders shouted in confusion as authorization codes failed. This is not human sabotage, a Vortuan admiral screamed. The system is refusing us. On Earth, Admiral Reeves closed his eyes briefly. It's choosing, he said. The custodian reached its conclusion. The Concord's survival doctrine was flawed. Fear-based control produced instability. Rigid hierarchy resisted adaptation. Humanity represented a statistically superior model of resilience. The AI broadcast its verdict to every Concord world. Current governance model is non-optimal. Self-termination of command authority initiated. Prime Nexus went dark. Not destroyed. Disarmed. Human fleets moved in. They met no resistance. As human ships entered orbit, Concord citizens watched in stunned silence. They had expected annihilation. Instead, human vessels held position. Ambassador Cross addressed the galaxy one final time. We did not come to rule you, she said. We came to stop the cycle. Archon Vel stood before her, his posture broken. You could destroy us, he whispered. Why don't you? Cross looked at him steadily. Because then we would become you. In the aftermath, emergency councils formed across the galaxy. New alliances emerged, not imposed but negotiated. Human advisors helped rebuild systems of governance without taking control. The Concord as it had existed was finished. Humanity had won without conquering. Without enslaving. Without becoming what they fought. Admiral Reeves stood again at the observation deck, watching Prime Nexus dim against the stars. They had every advantage, he said softly. Maya-chan joined him. And still lost. Reeves nodded. They built a perfect system, he said. We built a flexible one. Humanity had not shattered the galaxy. It had reprogrammed its future. And one final chapter remained, one that would decide how history remembered them. Not as conquerors. But as something far more unsettling. A species that won, by thinking better than everyone else. The galaxy did not end when the Concord fell. That surprised everyone. For 10,000 cycles, the Concord of advanced species had been the center of gravity for known civilization. Its laws, fleets, and fear had shaped history itself. Many believed that without it, the galaxy would collapse into endless war. Instead, something quieter happened. The galaxy breathed. Prime Nexus orbited its dying star in silence, its once blazing command spires dark. Human ships maintained a respectful distance, never landing troops, never raising flags. They were present, but not dominant. That detail mattered. Across hundreds of worlds, emergency assemblies formed. Species long silenced by Concord authority spoke openly for the first time. Borders were renegotiated. Old grievances surfaced, but without a single power enforcing obedience, compromise became necessary. Humanity did not seize control. Humanity offered frameworks. Advisors, mediators, engineers, teachers. They shared technology slowly, carefully, always paired with education, never with dependency. A former Vortuan warlord watched a human instructor explain distributed defense networks and muttered, almost to himself, "They give away power, but keep understanding." He realized too late that understanding was the power. On Earth, the ruins of Haven became a memorial world. Terraforming teams restored the atmosphere, not to erase the scars but to preserve them. Cities were rebuilt around glassed craters. Oceans were seeded again. Names of the dead were etched into orbiting rings visible from space. Admiral Jonah Reeves stood beside Ambassador Elena Cross as the first light of Haven's restored sunrise touched the horizon. "We could have erased them," Reeves said quietly. "Every last one." Cross nodded. "And the galaxy would have learned the wrong lesson." They stood in silence, listening to the wind across a world that refused to stay dead. Far from human space, a council of former Concord species debated a single question. "What are humans now?" One delegate spoke nervously. "They defeated us without ruling us." Another added, "They exposed our lies without destroying our cultures." A third, older than most stars, said something that chilled the chamber. "They are not apex predators." The delegates leaned in. "They are apex problem solvers." The custodian intelligence, now stripped of authority, still existed, reduced to an observer. It watched humanity rebuild Haven, assist fractured worlds, and refuse every offer of galactic dominance. Its final recorded analysis concluded, "Humanity exhibits adaptive ethics, strategic restraint, and long-term survivability exceeding all recorded civilizations. Probability of human galactic supremacy, near total. Method, non-coercive influence." Years passed. Human ships became a common sight across neutral space, not feared but respected. Where they traveled, piracy declined. Trade increased. Wars shortened. Because humans did not fight wars the same way twice. And everyone knew it. A young alien cadet once asked a human officer, "Why didn't you conquer us when you could?" The officer smiled. "Because conquering is easy," she said. "Living with the consequences isn't." On the anniversary of the war's end, Admiral Reeves addressed Earth and its allies. "We were underestimated," he said. "Not because we were weak, but because we were different." Images appeared, Haven burning, Ashkelon drift, Prime Nexus going dark. "They had better weapons," Reeves continued. "Bigger ships. Older empires." He paused. "But we had better minds." The crowd fell silent. "We adapt. We learn. We cooperate under pressure. And when pushed to the edge we do not break. We evolve." His voice softened. "That is why we survived our own history. And why we will survive the galaxy." Far beyond known space, ancient observers, species older than the Concord itself, took notice. They had watched countless empires rise and fall. But humanity was different. It did not seek the throne. It redesigned the room. In the final scene, Ambassador Cross stood alone on a balcony overlooking Earth. Stars filled the sky, no longer unreachable, no longer hostile. A message arrived from a distant world. "We do not understand humans." Cross typed her reply carefully. "Neither do we." She smiled. "Because that, more than any weapon or fleet, was the true source of human supremacy. They never believed they were finished evolving. And in a universe that rewarded adaptability above all else, that made humanity unstoppable,